In the small farming community of Cedar Grove, Wyoming, 1890, where appearances mattered almost as much as good character and social standing determined one's place in the carefully ordered hierarchy of frontier life, 32-year-old Daniel Harper had learned to navigate his world through sound, touch, and instinct rather than sight. Blinded in a ranch accident 7 years earlier, Daniel had retreated to his inherited property outside town, building a successful cattle operation through sheer determination and the loyalty of ranch hands who respected his unwavering fairness and quiet strength. 3 miles away, 28-year-old Anna Sinclair lived as a virtual recluse in the small cabin she shared with her elderly aunt, her face and neck bearing the deep scars from a barn fire that had claimed her parents when she was 15. The accident had left her not only orphaned, but marked in ways that made the good people of Cedar Grove uncomfortable, their eyes sliding away from her disfigurement even as they whispered about the poor Sinclair girl, whose chances for marriage and normal life had gone up in flames along with her family, his homestead. Both Daniel and Anna had accepted their isolation as the natural consequence of being different in a world that valued perfection. But neither had anticipated that the annual harvest dance, Cedar Grove's most important social event, would become the setting for an encounter that would challenge everything their community believed about love, beauty, and the courage required to see past surface appearances to the truth that lies beneath. What happened on that October evening would become the story that Cedar Grove residents would tell their grandchildren. The tale of how a blind rancher and a scarred woman proved that the most beautiful love stories aren't about perfect people finding each other, but about wounded souls discovering that their scars fit together to create something more beautiful than either could have imagined alone. If you believe that true love sees with the heart rather than the eyes, and that real beauty comes from the courage to be vulnerable with someone who treasures your authentic self, hit that like button. Share your thoughts about finding beauty in unexpected places, and subscribe for more stories that prove love's power to transform the ordinary into the extraordinary. The annual harvest dance in Cedar Grove was held in Murphy's General Store, its wide plank floors transformed into a ballroom when shelves were pushed against walls. Daniel Harper attended every year not from enjoyment, but because his presence was expected from someone of his standing in the community. At 32, Daniel was well past the age when most men had married, but his blindness had eliminated him from consideration by respectable families who saw matrimony as requiring able-bodied partners. He had developed acute sensitivity to the social dynamics that played out during these gatherings, the careful way people positioned themselves to avoid acknowledging his disability directly. This evening, Daniel positioned himself near the musicians, where he could enjoy the music without navigating social complexities. As he listened to the melodies filling the room, he became aware of someone standing nearby, close enough to sense their presence, but not intruding. "Good evening," Daniel said quietly, turning toward the presence. "I don't believe we've been introduced." "Oh," came a soft voice, clearly surprised. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to disturb you. I was just listening to the music." The voice belonged to a woman, probably close to his age, with a slight tremor, suggesting nervousness. "You're not disturbing me at all. I'm Daniel Harper. I own the ranch outside town." "I know who you are," the woman said, then quickly added, "Everyone knows about your ranch. You have a reputation for treating workers fairly." Daniel was intrigued by the careful way she spoke. "I'm afraid you have me at a disadvantage. I don't recognize your voice." There was a long pause. "I'm Anna Sinclair. I live with my aunt on the old Henderson place." Daniel felt recognition dawn. Anna Sinclair was the woman disfigured in the barn fire years earlier, whispered about with mixture of pity and discomfort by people unsure how to respond to visible suffering. He had never met her directly, but understood she lived in self-imposed isolation. "Miss Sinclair," Daniel said warmly. "I'm honored to make your acquaintance. What brought you to the dance tonight?" Anna evaluated his tone for signs of mockery. "My aunt insisted. She said it wasn't healthy for me to spend so much time alone." "And how are you finding it?" Daniel asked, genuinely curious. "Overwhelming," Anna admitted with surprising honesty. "I'd forgotten how loud groups of people can be." Daniel heard something in her voice that resonated with his own experience, the sense of being an observer rather than participant. "Would you like to step outside for a moment? The music carries well enough, but conversation might be easier." Anna hesitated, weighing social implications. "Yes, I think I'd like that." Daniel offered his arm with courtesy he would show any lady, surprised when Anna took it without awkward hesitation. Together, they made their way to the store's front porch. "Thank you," Anna said as they settled onto the porch steps. "I was beginning to feel like the walls were closing in." "I know the feeling," Daniel replied. They sat in comfortable silence listening to music drifting through windows. "Mr. Harper," Anna said eventually, "may I ask you something personal?" "Of course. Do you ever miss it? Being able to see?" The question was more direct than most people dared ask. "Every day," he said simply, "but I've learned there are other ways of seeing, other ways of understanding what's important." "Such as?" Anna asked with genuine curiosity. "Such as right now," Daniel said, turning toward her. "I can't see your face, but I can hear in your voice that you're someone who thinks carefully before speaking. I can tell you're kind because you asked about my experience with genuine concern rather than morbid curiosity." Anna was quiet for a long moment. "Most people can't see past the scars," she said finally, her voice barely a whisper. "The fire left me changed. People try to be kind, but they can't help looking away." Daniel felt understanding settle over him. "Miss Sinclair, I may not be able to see your scars, but I can hear your strength. If other people can't see past the surface to recognize your intelligence and compassion, then they're the ones who are truly blind." The music shifted to a slower waltz, and Daniel made an impulsive decision. "Miss Sinclair, would you do me the honor of dancing with me, here on the porch, where we can have the music without the audience?" Anna looked at his outstretched hand as if it were the most precious gift. "Mr. Harper, are you certain? I don't want people to stare." "Let them stare," Daniel said with quiet conviction. "Will you dance with me?" As Anna placed her hand in his and they began moving together to the drifting music, Daniel understood that something fundamental had shifted. For the first time since his accident, he felt truly seen by another person. Not in spite of his blindness, but because of the deeper understanding that disability had taught him about what really mattered in human connection. The weeks following the harvest dance brought unexpected transformation to both their lives. Anna began visiting Daniel's ranch every Wednesday afternoon, initially delivering preserves her aunt insisted were payment for Daniel's kindness, but both understood the real purpose was the conversation they had discovered they could share. Daniel found himself looking forward to Wednesdays with surprising anticipation. Anna possessed keen intelligence, sharpened by years of reading and observation, and her perspectives challenged him in ways he hadn't experienced since school. More importantly, she spoke to him without the careful tone others adopted, treating his blindness as simply another characteristic rather than defining limitation. "The new schoolteacher seems to be working out well," Anna observed one afternoon as they sat on Daniel's porch. "Miss Patterson?" "Yes, I've heard good things," Daniel replied. "Tom Bradley says his youngest is actually excited about arithmetic now." "She came to visit my aunt last week," Anna said, her voice carrying uncertainty. "She wanted to know if I might be interested in helping with the older children's reading instruction." Daniel turned toward her, sensing undercurrents. "And what did you tell her?" "I told her I'd think about it," Anna replied uncertainly. I don't know if it's a good idea. The children might be disturbed by my appearance, and the parents certainly wouldn't approve. Someone like you? Daniel asked, his tone sharpening. You mean someone intelligent, well-read, and capable of inspiring young minds? Anna was quiet, processing his words. That's not how other people see me, Daniel. It was the first time she had used his given name, and the casual intimacy made something warm settle in Daniel's chest. Then other people are fools, Daniel said firmly. Anna, you have gifts this community desperately needs. The fact that some people are too shallow to recognize them doesn't diminish their value. It's easy for you to say that, Anna replied without heat. You can't see the way people look at me, the way mothers pull their children closer, as if whatever happened to me might be contagious. Daniel was quiet, considering not just her words but the pain behind them. You're right. I can't see those things, but I can hear them in your voice every time you talk about yourself, and it breaks my heart. Daniel paused, gathering courage. Anna, when I listen to you laugh, when I hear excitement in your voice talking about a book, when I feel the gentleness in your touch, when you guide me around an obstacle, those moments show me a beauty that has nothing to do with what any mirror could reflect. Anna's breathing changed, becoming shallower. Daniel, why are you saying these things to me? Because they're true, Daniel said simply. And because I'm falling in love with you, and I want you to understand that my feelings are based on who you really are. The silence stretched endlessly. Daniel could hear Anna's breath catch as she processed his words. Daniel, Anna whispered finally, you don't know what you're saying. If you could see me, then I would love you for your scars as well as in spite of them, Daniel interrupted gently. Anna, those marks are proof that you survived something terrible. They're evidence of your strength, not symbols of damage. Anna began to cry then, quiet tears she tried to muffle. Without hesitation, Daniel reached out and found her hand, holding it gently while she wept for the acceptance she had never expected to find. I don't know how to do this, Anna said through her tears. I do not know how to let someone care about me when I can barely stand to look at myself. Then we'll learn together, Daniel replied, bringing her hand to his lips for a gentle kiss. Anna, I may not be able to see your reflection, but I can show you how you look to someone who loves you. As they sat together, Anna's hand in his and her tears gradually subsiding, Daniel understood that he had just committed himself to something far more complex than simple romance. He had promised to help Anna heal from wounds that went far deeper than physical scars, just as she had already begun to heal the emotional isolation that his blindness had created. The transformation in Daniel and Anna's lives became apparent when they appeared together at the monthly church social, walking arm in arm with quiet confidence of a couple who had moved beyond tentative courtship into something deeper. The reaction was immediate and varied. Some watched with barely concealed curiosity, others with benevolent approval. But most striking were those who looked upon them with something approaching wonder, as if witnessing a love story that challenged assumptions about what made relationships possible. Anna was acutely aware of the attention, but found that Daniel's presence created a buffer against her social anxiety. When people stared at her scars, Daniel's hand on her arm reminded her of his words about strength. When conversations faltered, Daniel's easy manner helped bridge awkward silences, but the most significant test came when Pastor Williams approached them with an unexpected request. Mr. Harper, Miss Sinclair, the elderly minister said, I wonder if I might ask a favor. We're planning our annual Christmas celebration with a special dance for the entire community. We need a couple to demonstrate the basic steps for those who have not had much experience, someone who can show that dancing is about joy and connection rather than perfect technique or conventional appearances. The minister's pause before those last words made his meaning clear. He was asking them to serve as an example, to show that love could transcend superficial judgments. "Pastor Williams," Anna began anxiously, "I'm not sure that's appropriate. People might be uncomfortable with—" "With what?" Daniel interrupted gently. "With seeing two people who care about each other share something beautiful?" Pastor Williams nodded approvingly. "Exactly my thoughts. I've watched you two together, and I've seen something our entire community needs to witness. You've shown us that real love isn't about finding someone perfect, but about finding someone whose imperfections fit perfectly with your own." Anna looked between the two men, understanding this moment would either mark new acceptance or expose them to judgment that could make their life together difficult. "What exactly would we need to do?" Anna asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Simply dance," Pastor Williams replied. "One waltz, to show everyone that the most important element isn't grace or skill, but willingness to trust your partner and move together in harmony." Daniel turned toward Anna. "What do you think? Are you willing to let the entire town see what I already know, that you're the most beautiful woman in Cedar Grove?" Anna felt tears gathering as she realized what Daniel was offering, not just the chance to dance in public, but the opportunity to be seen by their community as someone worthy of love rather than pity. "Yes," Anna said, her voice growing stronger. "Yes, I'll dance with you." The Christmas celebration brought the entire community together in Murphy's transformed store. When Pastor Williams announced the opening demonstration, Anna felt every eye turn toward them. For a moment, panic threatened, but then Daniel's hand found hers and squeezed gently. "Remember," he whispered, "they can't see anything more beautiful than what's already here." The musician began a simple waltz, and Daniel led Anna onto the floor with the same confidence he had shown that first night on the porch. But this time, instead of dancing in shadows, Anna found herself in full light of community attention. What happened next would be remembered by everyone present as one of the most moving experiences of their lives. As Daniel and Anna began to move together, their obvious love and trust transformed what could have been awkward spectacle into something genuinely beautiful. Daniel's blindness seemed irrelevant as he followed Anna's lead with perfect confidence. Anna's scars seemed to fade as the grace of their movement created its own beauty. What struck the watching community was the undeniable evidence of their connection. Every turn, every step, spoke of two people who had found exactly what they needed to feel complete. Their dance wasn't technically perfect, but it was emotionally flawless. A visual representation of love that transcended every superficial concern. When the music ended and they stood together, still holding each other close, silence lasted several heartbeats before erupting into spontaneous applause that seemed to come from everyone's hearts. "That," said Mrs. Patterson through tears, "was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." As other couples joined them on the floor, inspired to overcome their own self-consciousness, it became clear that something significant had shifted in the community's understanding of what made love stories worth celebrating. Anna, still glowing from the acceptance she had just experienced, looked up at Daniel with wonder. Did that really just happen? "What happened?" Daniel replied, bringing her hand to his lips, "is that an entire room full of people just discovered what I learned the first night I met you, that real beauty has nothing to do with what eyes can see, and everything to do with what hearts can feel." 6 months after the Christmas dance that transformed them from objects of curious pity into the community's most celebrated love story, Daniel Harper and Anna Sinclair stood together in the garden behind the church, surrounded by virtually everyone in Cedar Grove, as they exchanged vows written from their own deep understanding of what marriage meant for two people who had found wholeness in each other as brokenness. The wedding had become a community event because Daniel and Anna's relationship had given everyone a new understanding of what love could accomplish when based on seeing the person rather than the surface. Children who had once been taught to avoid Anna now brought her wildflowers. Women who had once whispered about her scars now sought her advice. Men who had once pitied Daniel now recognized him as someone who saw more clearly than most sighted people. "Dearly beloved," Pastor Williams began, "we are gathered to witness the union of two souls who have taught us valuable lessons about the nature of love, beauty, and the courage required to live authentically in a world that often values appearance over substance." Anna wore cream-colored silk her aunt had sewn specially, but more striking was the confidence with which she carried herself. The woman who had once hidden her face now stood openly before her community, her scars visible but no longer defining her, transformed by love that had taught her to see herself through eyes that valued character over complexion. Daniel, resplendent in his finest suit but more remarkable for the joy radiating from him, held Anna's hands as if they were the most precious things he had ever touched. "Anna," Daniel said when invited to share his vows, "6 months ago, you asked me how I could be certain about your beauty when I couldn't see your face. Today, I want to tell you and everyone here exactly what I see when I think about you." Daniel's voice carried clearly across the garden. "I see courage in every word you speak, because I know how hard it was for you to find your voice again. I see strength in every step you take, because I understand the effort it requires to move through a world that hasn't always been kind. I see grace in every gesture, because you've learned to create beauty in spite of circumstances that could have made you bitter. But most of all," Daniel concluded, "I see home in you. You've taught me that love isn't about finding someone who fits into the life you've already built, but about creating something entirely new together." When Anna spoke her vows, her voice was strong and clear. "Daniel, you gave me the greatest gift anyone has ever given me. You taught me that I was worthy of being loved exactly as I am. You showed me that my scars don't make me broken, they make me unique. You proved that real beauty comes from being seen and accepted and cherished for every part of who you are." She looked out at neighbors and friends gathered to celebrate, many openly weeping at the honest emotion. "Today, I promise to spend the rest of my life helping you see the world through my eyes, just as you've helped me see myself through yours. I promise to be your vision when sight isn't needed, and your partner in creating a life that proves love can indeed conquer every limitation we think we have." As Pastor Williams pronounced them husband and wife, and Daniel kissed his bride with tenderness that spoke of infinite patience and love, the entire community erupted in celebration that seemed to come from their collective heart. The reception was unlike any wedding celebration Cedar Grove had ever seen, not because of elaborate decorations, but because of genuine joy that infected everyone present. Children danced with grandparents, shy teenagers found courage to approach crushes, and couples married for decades looked at each other with renewed appreciation. But the moment remembered most clearly came when Daniel and Anna took the floor for their first dance as husband and wife. As they moved together to a simple waltz, their perfect synchronization and obvious devotion created a scene so beautiful that several people later swore they could see actual light surrounding the couple. "You know," observed Martha Bradley to her husband, "I always thought I understood what love looked like. But seeing them together has made me realize that most of what I thought was love was really just convenience, or habit, or social expectation." "What they have," Tom Bradley replied, his arm tightening around his wife, "is what love looks like when people stop trying to find someone perfect and start trying to become perfect for each other." As the evening drew to a close and Daniel and Anna prepared to leave for their new home, Pastor Williams called for final community attention. "Friends," the elderly minister said, "I've been privileged to officiate at many weddings, but today I've witnessed something special. Daniel and Anna have shown us that the most beautiful love stories aren't about people who never struggle. They're about people who choose to see the best in each other, especially when the world tells them they should settle for less. Years later, visitors to Cedar Grove would hear the story of the blind rancher who danced with a scarred woman and created the most beautiful love story their community had ever witnessed. It became the tale parents told their children about what real love looked like, the story couples shared when they needed reminding that true beauty comes from being known completely and loved unconditionally. And every year on their anniversary, Daniel and Anna would dance again in that same garden, proving once more that the most magnificent love stories happen when two people brave enough to be vulnerable discover that their imperfections create a perfect harmony that no amount of superficial beauty could ever match. This incredible story proves that the most beautiful love happens when we're brave enough to be seen completely and loved unconditionally. Hit that like button if this reminded you that our differences don't make us broken. They make us beautifully unique to the person meant to love us. Subscribe for more amazing stories that show how real love transcends every limitation society tries to place on us. Share this with someone who needs to remember that they are worthy of a love that sees past every scar, every imperfection, every insecurity to find the beautiful soul beneath. True beauty never needs perfect vision to be recognized.